Hello, and welcome to another episode of Finding Mr. Hyde, the podcast. I am your host, Allie Jackson, and I am bringing you my positive and practical approach to dating, relationships, and a whole lot else about life, brought to you from my experience. Thank you for being here. As always, I am so excited for this week's episode. It features my friend and friend of the pod, Ilana Dunn. She is the host of Seeing Other People, dating podcast that you've probably heard of if you are familiar with the dating podcast space. Her podcast is amazing. She hosts it by herself and then also has introduced recently another weekly segment or like weekly episode that she does with her husband, Jake, called Co-Host for Life, which is just such a cute name. And she actually does 3 episodes a week. She also does like a listener story time every single week. She has a wild amount of content. I'm so impressed by her. And I always love talking to her. And I listened to her podcast. And on a recent solo episode, she did one about advice, dating advice specifically, that she wishes she had taken sooner or that she never took it all and regrets. And it was a really interesting concept. And we've been meaning to do a pod swap again for quite a while. And so I suggested that topic and kind of bring our own perspectives together. I also reached out to you, the listeners, on my Instagram story and got some great input. And so it's a super fun conversation. And I'm excited to bring it to all of you and excited to also be on her show sometime soon. This week on the Patreon, we did an Ask Me Anything episode, some amazing questions from you all, from the patrons. One of which I especially loved, which was about career, sort of like how to navigate looking for a new job when you've been in toxic work environments. And I talked about different approaches that I've had in interviews in the past and different questions I've asked and ways that I've tried to glean what it will feel like to work somewhere, not just what the work will be like, which are two very different things in my experience. It was just a super fun episode. And then I do a bonus episode every week for our $10 tier, our Discord patrons. I talked about patriarchal bargaining. I did like a deep dive on that topic and specifically ways that I myself exhibit and or have exhibited patriarchal bargaining and kind of how I feel about that and what I'm working through in that. So great week on the Patreon. I am fresh off a trip to Miami, got back a few days ago, and it was so incredible. It was a last minute trip that I said yes to sort of like off the cuff from a friend that I've gotten closer to over the last year. She was the one planning the trip. And then a couple of other people who I knew, but not too well, were also going. It was a girls' trip. And it was really an example. I talked about this in a deeper way on the Patreon, an example of how I really want to expand my friendships and deepen my friendships, even though I do have a really solid friend group. And I also have like individual friendships outside of that group, but I want to continue to expand and to deepen and bring diversity of thought and experience into my life in increasingly bigger ways. And that might seem super serious for a little funsies girls trip to Miami, but it's really how I thought about it. And we had such a good time. The friend of mine who was organizing the trip went to Miami, also lived in Miami for a few years after college. So she goes back a lot. So I really got to passenger princess this trip, which I very rarely do. I'm a big planner, as you know, and I love planning travel in particular. And that makes it extra special for me when I get to passenger princess a trip, particularly because I fully trusted her to handle all of the logistics of this trip. And I just showed up and she wanted that for me and for the other people that were going. And that was just really cool. Honestly, it's the energy that I try to bring to my Finding Mr. Height group trips, because most of the women that go on those trips with me are typically like the planners of their friends. They are the type A ones that are doing the planning. And it's so cool to be able to plan a trip or an event or whatever it is for the people who usually do the planning and to like get to watch them sit back and enjoy. It's so special to me. And that's what I got to do on this trip, which was so cool. I was there for a long weekend. The girls were there for a little bit longer than that. I flew in on Thursday, flew out on Monday. We were staying on South Beach, walking distance from the beach in a little Airbnb. Perfect location. And we also rented a car, so we were able to drive to like some other places. But it was awesome. We spent a little bit of time like at the beach, not a little, but we spent time at the beach sunning. We were going to play some beach volleyball, but eventually decided that we would rather relax and read. And that was perfect. We had some amazing food, amazing food. I'm going to do a blog post like I did for Mexico City. This week was really, really busy, but I'm going to do one about the places that we ate specifically because they were so good. One other thing that I really appreciate about my friend is that she is vegan, but she still wanted us to experience other things in Miami, like a Cubano, for example, and not just be limited to her vegan options. So we went to her vegan spots too, or we would like pick up something from her vegan place or pick up something from our place and then all go somewhere to eat it together. Or we'd go to places that had both options, but just super, super good food. I had an amazing Cubano. I had really good Vietnamese food at this place called Tam Tam. So good. Probably like the best Vietnamese I've had outside of Vietnam. And I'd previously said that about a place called Die and Die here in New York, but I think this was better. It was super, super good. And it was just really fun. We went biking in the Everglades one day, which was harder than I anticipated. The bikes were extremely heavy and it was super hot, but we had such a good time. Saw alligators like chilling and we're just like biking through. It was about like 15 kilometers, I think. And then there was this big viewpoint at the end that was beautiful. It was just a lovely girls' trip. We relaxed, we read, we ate good food, we were active. We walked around a farmer's market for a while one day and just like got to see the Miami that she loves, that she lived in, albeit quite a long time ago, but like she goes back there a lot. It was lovely. It was a great reset. And I'm really, really glad I went. I was like, not regretting saying yes, but like a little anxious about having said yes, kind of so last minute and off the cuff a couple of days before, because I've taken on a new consulting client and I've bitten off a little bit more than I can chew with what the scope creep. If you're familiar with scope creep, it's like when your job is one thing and you're supposed to be doing one thing and then other things just sort of keep getting added to your plate. That's called scope creep in the corporate world. And it is a lot harder to manage in like a salary or retainer situation when you're not hourly. I'm on retainer with all of my clients right now, which is awesome for a lot of reasons. But one thing that is really difficult about it is that scope creep is really easy to have happen. Like you're not committing to a certain number of hours for them per se. You're committing to a certain scope of work. And so you have to be really, really good at setting boundaries on what that scope is and what it isn't. And I have a new client where I'm still kind of navigating that. So this last couple of weeks with that have been a little bit crazy from a client work perspective. So I was kind of nervous about this trip. And I'm just so glad I went. I'm so, so glad I went and not only like continued to foster my friendship with the friend that I've been closer to lately, but also really get to know these two other women who I didn't know that well. And I just loved it so much. And it relates to this week's media mention on purpose. I say that like it's a coincidence. It's not. This came up on my feed maybe a week ago, something like that. And it was something that I'd really been thinking about recently. It's an article from The Atlantic. I don't like to pick articles and things that are behind paywalls for media mention. I try to avoid it. The Atlantic does offer a free trial, which is what I did for a month to read this article. So putting that out there, I will, put the title of the article and everything in the show notes. It's called The Friend Group Fallacy. It's by Jenny Singer. So if you want to read it, you can check out the free trial. I wanted to share this one specifically because, like I mentioned, I am somebody who does have a very vibrant friend group. And by that, I mean a group that all of us are friends with each other. Obviously, there's going to be people who are closer within that group, like Cindy and I are best friends, but like we're part of this larger friend group. But the friend group does a lot of things together. I am somebody who has that because of volleyball. And I sought that out when I realized that I was losing my friend group rapidly in my mid-20s as my college friends started to move away, have kids, like just kind of move to different places in their life. I had that friend group, and I think a lot of us had that friend group when we were like in high school or in college. It's a lot easier to have that. But I have developed that because of volleyball in my adult life. And I do get DMs and comments pretty regularly from people who see that and either assume that like everyone else besides them kind of has that. And I think TV and movies make us think that this is very common in adulthood. And so they think that like everybody else has this and feel like something is wrong with them that they don't. And this article is basically a response to that came up on my feed. And I was like, man, like I wish more people would internalize that. It makes the case that having this like tight crew of friends is actually not the norm. And it's more of a media or social media illusion that makes us feel like a lot of us are behind on this sort of like unspoken requirement of adulthood. And we see things in the media like I can think of a formative show for me growing up or in high school or whatever was Friends. And those people were in their, I guess, 20s. They were meant to be in their 20s, but whatever. They were adults. They were living in New York City and they didn't seem to be like immediately post college. They were true adults in my mind as a 16-year-old. And they have this friend group where they go to this coffee shop and they hang out and they're all friends with each other. And there are so many shows like this and movies like this. And it makes it seem like that is the norm. And the author, Jenny Singer, she describes her own friendships as sort of like a patchwork of one-on-one friendships, which outside of volleyball is how I feel about my friendships. Like I have a lot of one-on-one friends that I either only hang out with one-on-one or I will invite them to a larger event like my birthday party or a housewarming or things like that. And then individual friends will converge. But I very rarely hang out regularly with those friends in a group. Like it's more one-on-one friendships. And you like the way that Jenny Singer describes it is, she'll have like a happy hour here with one friend or a Saturday walk or, things like that. And she admits that while she genuinely loves her friends, she also feels lonely sometimes seeing what she feels like are a lot of other people seeming to exist in this group dynamic way more than she does. So in this piece, she talks about research, friendship research specifically, that shows that most adults don't live near their friends. And therefore, they rarely hang out in groups regularly because like thinking about my college friends is a good example. I had a really tight-knit friend group in college, and a lot of those friends moved to New York City. And so we were able to make that transition. But now I'm the only one who still lives here. I'm actually about to see one of them on Saturday who lives out in the suburbs in Jersey, and I'm really excited. But that doesn't happen very often. And very rarely are we all in the same place. Like we have to very much go out of our way to do that, right? Also, they all have kids. So that kind of adds a layer of complexity. So because of that, from what the research shows is that most people maintain more of a hub and spoke sort of friendship network rather than this like ensemble group that we see in the media and that we think is the norm. And that also something I thought was really interesting is that women specifically tend to gravitate towards one-on-one friendships rather than like looser group friendships. And I think about my own individual friendships within my friend group are my most cherished. Like, do I love when all of us are together and we're like at the house that we rent in the Poconos, or like a friend had a birthday party last weekend and we were all there? Of course. But what really fills me up is that I have such individual connections within that group. And it's not just all of us hanging in the group. And so I think if what you have right now is a handful of people who would pick up the phone at midnight for you, like that's a win. Like that's actually the goal. And I think what really fulfills us, and having a friend group is great. And if you want that, I think there are ways to intentionally build one, but it isn't the norm. And I think that is so important to realize. Most people don't have that. And again, the things that I find most valuable in my friendships are actually outside of this friend group that I have, or like maybe tangentially related to it, but not just the group. So that really spoke to me, particularly as I was on this trip, kind of forming deeper one-on-one connections with people that are not even in my friend group. Like the two women that I don't really know that well, like they're in the volleyball community, but like not in my sort of like insular friend group. And it was just amazing. And I think it reminded me that I want to continue to do that. It's one of the reasons why Skyline and I signed up for the double dating app, going on one tonight. Very excited. That's one of the reasons, is because I really want to continue to expand and deepen in that way. A couple other things that came up for me on this Miami trip that I wanted to mention. One, take dating app photos of your friends. Take dating app photos of your friends. I'm planning a post for probably like the end of the year but sometime later, of all of the pictures of me that I would use from this year, that I would use on dating apps if I were on dating apps. And the reason is because I think what I see in my coaching is that a lot of people have opportunities to have good pictures. They just aren't necessarily capitalizing on them. So an example is biking in the Everglades. We were biking for, like I said, 15 kilometers. We were out there for a few hours. So many good videos and photos taken. And specifically, I would recommend, if you're in a situation like that, to ask your friends, hey, will you take a quick video of me? Or will you take a picture of me on the bike? And create those cute, good photos that you want to have. And so I put that hat on. I put my dating coach hat on. And for like my friends, we're like, hey, I'm going to video you now. I'm going to take a video of you. Ask your friends to do that. And I bet you that you have more situations that you're in where that could be applicable than you realize. Because I talk to a lot of people who are like, well, I don't really do anything. So what would I have a video of? Because as we know, hopefully we know, videos get more engagements than photos. So I always recommend you use videos. They don't have to be crazy. Like they could just be you biking a little bit or you running a little bit. Just some movement is great. The other thing that came up when we were biking was just such an example of the mental load of women that it blew my mind, even though it shouldn't have blown my mind because it happens all the fucking time. But we were leaving, right? We had rented these bikes and we were like on our way. And we had gone maybe, I don't know, we've been biking for maybe 15, 20 minutes. And we see up ahead of us two people who are walking their bikes towards us. And it was an out and back path, right? We see two people who are walking their bikes towards us, a man and a woman. And as we get closer, I realize that they look like they did not show up for the same activity. The woman is dressed like we were dressed in athletic gear. She was wearing like leggings and an athletic top. She's got a camelback. She is prepared, right? It's fucking hot. And this bike path is 15 kilometers in the heat. Like this isn't a leisurely little outing, right? Like it's strenuous. She's prepared. The man's wearing jeans. He's wearing jeans and probably like whatever shoe he happened to have in his suitcase. He doesn't have a hat. She had a hat. He doesn't have a hat. He looks sunburned. And they're walking their bikes and they're talking. And as we get closer, I realize that he is the reason that they've turned around because he was unprepared. And he is like, well, you could have just kept biking. Like, I will just meet you at the front. And she's like, dude, we're in the Everglades. I'm not biking by myself next to alligators. Like, it's safe, but I don't want to bike by myself in the Everglades. I wanted to bike with you. And we were moving, right? So I only heard like this really specific, like really short part of the conversation. But the outfits would have told me all of this, even if I hadn't. And it made me so mad on her behalf because I know damn well he knew what they were doing, right? And he's an adult. He knows what you should wear to bike. He knows it's 85 degrees out. He knows all of these things. And yet I'm like picturing these scenarios that happen so often where it's like, well, why didn't you tell me I should wear a hat? Well, why didn't you tell me I should wear sunscreen? Well, why didn't you tell me I shouldn't wear jeans? Because you should fucking know. You should fucking know what you should wear on a bike. You're an adult. And like, obviously I'm putting a lot more words into their mouths than the conversation I actually heard, but it just got me thinking about this theme that really pissed me off. So that was it. That's my rant. Rant over and rant. It was just a really lovely trip. And one of the other things that was so lovely while I was gone is that I got a picture of Skyline with a bunch of my friends because my friends had invited him to go hang out for something that they were doing. And that just made me so happy. It really warmed my heart. Now that I'm saying this out loud, I should have brought it up in my conversation with Ilana because we get into, again, it's about dating advice that we didn't listen to, right? And we get into people that our friends thought were bad for us or people that, are red flags that we ignored that our friends would have seen if they'd known about them, or maybe they did see and things like that. And I think back to relationships that my friends, maybe they didn't like disapprove of my relationship, but they weren't like actively seeking out my partner as somebody that they also might want to hang out with. And I don't need my partner and my friends to be like besties, but it is weird. It should have been weird to me in hindsight that this person that I like hanging out with so much would not gel with all of these other people that I like hanging out with so much. Like, that's weird to me. And so it's just really awesome. I love that my friends love him and that they want to hang out with him when I'm not there, and that they like have his number to do that and are like actively reaching out to him. Like, that's just so cool and special to me. And that's it. That's all. I just really love it. I really love it. So with that, let's get to Ilana. And we are back with Ilana. Hi, Ilana. Welcome back to Finding Mr. Height.
Oh my God. I feel like when I think of you and Finding Mr. Height, I just think of like the last 5 years that I've been doing this. You've just been such a common thread through it all. So it feels like home to be back.
You too. We're long overdue for a reunion.
We always
pod
are.
Swap. We always are. It's so true. It's so true. I'm excited to get into this. So I had seen that you had done a solo ep on Seeing Other People, which I did. I said it in the intro, but obviously shout out. Ilana is the host of Seeing Other People, which is an amazing dating podcast. I'd seen that you did a solo ep about dating advice that you didn't take or like regretted not taking sooner.
Mm-hmm.
Genius.
Yeah. I had kind of a spontaneous thought to do that one. It was almost like how have I not done this already? And I think I was thinking about, my friends who are single who they don't want to hear advice from me. They that's the last thing that they want is to hear me give them advice or to like have me try and coach them. And so I really try not to, but then I think about, what advice are they getting and who are they getting it from? And they know what the advice is that I probably would give them. And there's such a difference between like being able to give advice and being able to like take your own advice. And I was just like, there's so much good advice that I got from friends, from my favorite podcast hosts, from
myself,
coaches, from all of these people, from you when I was single that I completely just ignored. And I wish I had taken it because not that like, I'm so happy with how my life turned out in terms of dating relationships. I am so happy. I couldn't imagine being with anyone but Jake. And I think we met in the right time, in the right place for us. So it's not that I wanted to get to somebody sooner because it might not have been him, but I just think that taking some of the advice that I had been given that I ignored would have saved me so much heartache and pain. And that's why I was like, I need people to hear this from someone who suffered a lot, that it doesn't have to be this painful.
1,000%. I like that you framed it as like, not that I would have wanted to meet someone sooner, because I feel the same way about Skyline. Like, if I had met someone sooner, it literally would not have been him.
Right.
Like, it couldn't have been him.
Yeah.
So I'm not upset about the timing, but good grief, did I go through some shit. Often of my own making.
Correct. Exactly. We made choices. Not that it's all our fault. Like, of course, things happen to us too, but we made so many choices, and everyone does, that maybe weren't in our best interest. And, sometimes we have to learn the lessons for ourselves. However, we don't have to learn the same lesson 100 times.
Yeah. I mean, I was just going to say, like, when I was talking about, like getting advice from myself, it's like, I ignored advice that I literally gave.
Yeah.
Because like you said, like sometimes we have to learn the lessons for ourselves, or it's like, no, I know that I shouldn't be doing this thing. I know. I'm going to do it anyway.
Correct. Guilty.
And I think that's, it's a real thing that like, just because you are good at giving advice at something, or just because you know what the right advice is, doesn't mean that always makes it super easy to apply it to yourself. And I think that's true about a lot in life.
Yeah.
A lot.
Absolutely.
So I think I really appreciated you opening up about that. And I was like, you know what? I think this will be a great conversation for us to have together. And I asked a lot of my listeners about advice that they wish that they'd taken sooner and got some good stuff.
I'm so excited. I was actually thinking about this last night before going to bed. I was like, I can't wait to find out what they're going to say and see how much it mimics what we each
Mhm.
think for ourselves, because it's like, yes, advice is so nuanced and everyone's experiences are so different. And a lot of the advice that we are sick of hearing, it's actually pretty good advice.
Oh, yeah. Oh,
And
yeah.
there's a reason we hear it over and over and over. So I'm curious how much is the same.
Yes. Okay. So the first kind of like category, I would say, of listener submissions that I got that lined up very well with the things that I had written down for myself was about gut feelings and specifically ignoring your gut feelings. Or like somebody said, and this is a quote from a listener, if you feel like you're hiding things, that's bad.
Mhm. Mhm. Correct. That's
Correct.
bad. Like
That's bad.
it doesn't have to be so scientific or like therapy speak. It's just like that is bad.
That's bad.
Yes.
That's bad. Red flag.
In any walk of life, with romantic partners, with friends, with family, with work, with anything. If you are hiding something, it's probably because there's something going on that shouldn't be happening.
Yeah. Like I think about some of the really toxic relationships that I've been in and been party to, right? Like we said, not our fault per se, but like stuff that I participated in willingly. I was there. I didn't break up with them.
Yeah.
I think about some of those relationships that I talk about on the pod now or like on my social media now. And my friends, when I first started talking about that, were like, the fuck? What do you mean that happened?
Like, we didn't know. We would not have allowed this. And that's why I didn't tell
That's
you.
that's why I didn't tell you. Yeah. Uh-huh.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I think especially when we know when we're hiding something from our friends because we're embarrassed
Mm.
about it, or we know they'll be like, "Ooh, not good." It's similar with like if we see our friends, if we know something's happening with a friend and their significant other or situationship, and we're trying to get them to admit to it and they won't, we know that they're not because they're embarrassed and they don't want to be
Of
judged. They
course.
don't want us to tell them, like, okay, you should walk away from this because
They know
sometimes we're
that.
not ready to. But there is a reason you're hiding it. And I
Yeah.
think questioning that reason is really important to do.
Is that something that you've done before in the past?
Oh my God. I mean, I was in this like almost year long, incredibly toxic secret relationship with somebody. And my friends all knew about it. It was
Sure.
secret from people in his life.
Okay.
Which if
I'm
that's
gathering
not
the scene has been set.
yeah, if that's not like the biggest waving red flag you've ever heard, I don't know what is. But even with that, it started off really well, and it started off with my friend saying, "We've never seen you so happy with somebody." And a
Mm.
few months later, it went to, "Ilana, we've never seen you so sad." And they started pointing out behaviors and things, and what I would say to them every time is, "Well, you don't know what it's like when it's just the two of us." Which on one hand, yes, he did treat me very well and very differently when it was just the two of us. And on the other hand, there was also some really bad shit going on when it was just the two of us. And
Yeah.
things like me having to hide in his laundry room and things that I was never going to admit to my friends
Of
because
course not.
for some reason I was still holding on to this thing for dear life. But I was absolutely hiding the worst of it because I knew that from what they had seen, which I didn't think was that bad, they weren't supportive. And so, yeah, of course I wasn't going to tell them the mortifying things that I was doing and feeling.
The stuff that was even worse than the things they didn't approve of.
Right. But then it's like, why? Like, why?
Yeah.
And I think this is where, we've all heard like your friends and family can see things that you can't. So, like,
Mhm.
listen to them. And we think we're protecting ourselves by not showing them the things that we don't want them to see and what we don't want them to hear. But our friends and family have our best interests in mind. They
Yeah.
want us to be happy. And so if they're not, that really is something to pay attention to. And 9 out of 10 times, I'd say they're right.
Yeah. I think about the last relationship I had, like really like last relationship I had before I started the pod, actually. And we met right before COVID.
Mhm.
And then he moved back to where his parents live out of his apartment that we had previously been discussing moving into together. Mind you, like way too early to be doing that. I didn't tell any of my friends that either. Um, but he didn't tell me that he had decided to end his lease and move back to where his parents were until he was moving, like literally until he had scheduled the move.
Good.
Yeah, it was just perfect. Exactly what
We
you
love
want.
that.
Yeah, and it was, mind you, like peak COVID when travel was not really a thing. Like basically it was a crazy thing to do. I My friends were like, "Oh, did you know? Like did you know he was going?" And I was like, "Of course I
Oh,
knew."
yeah, obviously.
What and I remember literally saying to someone, my best friend knew, but I remember literally saying to someone like, "That would be crazy if he moved and didn't tell me."
Mhm.
Yes. Yes, it would.
Correct. You're so right. That would be really wild
That would be
and not
insane.
okay.
You should break up with that person if they did that. Yeah, you totally.
Mhm. Mhm.
I'm like red right now thinking about it. And like that turned into just such a terrible relationship where I was also hiding like the fights that we had and like the way that he spoke to me. And it was
Yeah.
easier also though because it was COVID. And so my friends didn't really spend time around him.
Mm. Yeah.
I think if I were dating that person, I would never be dating them now. But I think if I had been dating that person like in 2019, that shit would never have flied.
Yeah.
They would have seen it.
Yeah, but you were the narrator. It's
Oh,
actually funny.
correct.
I asked this question to a friend before 'cause she was like this friend of mine, like she gets dates, but she's never been to in a relationship. She's like in her 30s and I don't know what's happening, but like she's going on dates, but then like she always ends up in these horrible situations and she was explaining a situation to me and my
Mhm.
question back to her was let's call her Emily. I was like, "Well, is Emily a reliable narrator? Like, is this what's actually happening?"
Such a
And
good
she was like,
question.
"You know what? Not at all." And I think we forget to ask, like, is this person actually likely telling us what's really happening, or are they telling us the rose-colored glasses version of their story that they're trying to convince themselves of?
Such a good question. And yeah, in that relationship, I was not a reliable narrator,
Nope. We often are not.
often or not.
Yeah.
And I think it happened too because I had had a relationship prior to that where I was like really brutally honest with my friends about what was going on. And I knew it was bad and like ended up ending things, but like I didn't like that experience.
Mhm.
So I was like, oh, no, no, but I can handle this on my own this time.
Right.
No,
No.
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 On that note, the other thing that came up a lot that I really wish I had internalized sooner was when someone shows you who they are, believe them.
Yeah. This was really big for me too. And it gets into this whole theme of making excuses
Yeah.
for someone else's behavior or justifying why they've been so inconsistent.
Oh, he was so
And
stressed, or he only
mhm,
got mad because this happened. Yeah.
this happened to them in the past, or
Mm.
they've have this big project at work that's just been keeping them really busy. And it's totally okay to, you know, I was in a relationship where I did not hear from my boyfriend for 72 hours,
Oh.
and I did not know what country he was in.
Oh, I would have thought
And
he perished.
mhm, and he was traveling a lot for work, and I will still say to this day, he was probably like the literal busiest person on the planet, and I was allowing that.
Right.
I was allowing that. And of course, I was sad and I was checking my phone incessantly. And all I wanted was to hear from him. But I'm like, I understand. He's so busy. He doesn't have time. He told me he doesn't even have time to like poop or shower. So, like, I can't expect that he's going to text me No. Anyone has 10 seconds in a day to say, hey, it's such a busy day. I can't wait to catch up with you when all of this is over.
I'm
Or
currently
thinking
pooping,
of you.
so I thought I
I'm
would.
pooping. Correct. Anything. And you know what, Allie? This relationship, when he broke up with me, because he broke up with me,
It's a theme for me as well.
he said, I've been waiting for you to break up with me because you should have a long time ago because I've been a horrible boyfriend. And I think you know that. And I don't know why you haven't dumped me. So I have to do it now.
Punch him in the face.
But I
But
was just making
he's not
excuses
wrong.
for all of his behavior.
Yeah.
I kept saying, yeah, this isn't great, but, or yeah, you know, I deserve more than this, but because I didn't want to let go.
That brings up two things that I had written down that I've ignored in the past, and a couple of listeners said them too. One is being the chill girl is not the flex you think it is.
It's not a flex at all. It's a lie.
It's a lie. It's
It's
one
a
of the reasons
blaring
why, like,
lie.
one of the very first phrases that I started using regularly when I started FMH was "no chill, no problem," because I have no chill, and that's fine. And
Frankly, I don't know any girl that has chill.
I don't think very many people in general do. But,
No.
like, we've been fed this lie that,
Yeah.
like, being, like, used to put it the way you said, like, understanding
Mm-hmm.
to a fault
Mm-hmm.
is the goal. And, like, obviously, you wanna be a kind person, an understanding person, whatever, blah, blah, blah. That's not what we're talking about here. But, like, being that to a fault where you're then ignoring yourself and your needs because you don't wanna, like, rock the boat,
Mm-hmm.
I really needed to internalize that a lot sooner than I did.
Yeah. I think we forget when we're dating that most of us are looking for a life partner and
Right.
somebody to actually go through life with. And I wish I had that at the forefront of my mind more when I was going on dates, when I was navigating and struggling with situationships, because most of these people, all of the time, were not showing any ounce of life partner material. Someone that I could work through really difficult stuff with, someone that I could call on my worst day, someone that I knew would be there for me without question, no matter what. It was all the opposite. It was me, begging for people's attention. Not and I didn't see it as that because I wasn't like sitting there like a dog begging,
Right.
but all I wanted was their attention. And I would have a bad day if they weren't texting me back quick enough. And I was more anxious than sane in these relationships. And I mean, think about friendships that you have. Like, if your relationship doesn't feel as safe to you as your best friendships, then that's not the right relationship for you. This is the person that you're going to have the worst days of your life with and the best. But you have to think about, can they show up for me when things are bad? Is this somebody I fully can be myself with and fully can show up on my bad days with? And we forget that. We really, really forget that when we're dating.
Yeah, because, like, that's so well said, and it's, like, in early dating or even, like, in a situationship or, like, before you're in an official relationship and you're pushing down all of these feelings that you have, even outside of the relationship. Even, like, let's say I had a bad day at work, and I'm really stressed out and anxious about my day at work, but I don't feel like I can bring that energy to this person because I need to be the, like, bubbly, happy girl that he's dating
Yep.
and not bring him down. But am I doing that for the rest of my life?
No, you
No,
can't.
you
You can't.
can't.
It's not sustainable. And it's not fair. Why would you want that?
Right. Yeah, like, I think about things that I ask Skyline for now, like, support-wise. Like, I had a really stressful client day a couple days ago. Like, one of my consulting clients is just a little bit erratic, and I had, like, a really stressful day, and I just was like, "Can you hold me on the couch and, like, calm my nervous system? Because 'Cause I'm, like, really freaking out about this." And he just did. And I just calmed sitting there. And I'm thinking back to all of these relationships or situationships or whatever that I was in where I would never have felt comfortable showing that level of vulnerability. And, like, in my head, I would have thought about it as weakness.
Yeah.
And I don't think
And
it's weakness now, but I would have.
when you think about it, like of all the relationships you're going to have in your life, this is meant to be the one where you can be the least filtered
Mhm.
and fully, fully, entirely the most yourself. And if you're going through even the early stages of dating, pretending like you don't care, pretending like you don't have boundaries that you actually have, someone's going to end up falling for a version of you that isn't you. And
Right.
so, okay, cool. You get the guy. Guess what? You're living life in fear of actually showing who you are. And this is why I really, really am anti like dating rules and, playing the game, because
Mhm.
what are you, if you win the game, okay, you get the guy, you get the girl, you get into the relationship, what's the point
Yeah, now
if you
what?
haven't been yourself? Like, truly, nothing in the world feels better than knowing someone likes you exactly for who you are.
Yeah. And the correlation with friendship is such a good one because I truly can't think of a person I've ever heard about who, like, pretended in that way to maintain a friendship.
Mhm.
Maybe, like, I
Right.
don't know, if you're friends with some celebrity and you really wanna be friends with them, maybe somebody
Yeah,
out there is doing that. Stop it,
or
but
like
maybe they
high
are.
school, like social climbing.
Sure. Sure, sure, sure.
But
But,
but
like,
even you know that that's fake and everyone else can see it too. That's why the
yes,
term social climber exists, because people are like, "Wow, Alana's such a social climber." Like, it's so
totally.
obvious. And
Yes.
nobody's ever been like, "Oh, they're so good at social climbing. Love that for them." No, it's a bad thing.
No. Exactly. And it's like, but we can see that so clearly
Yeah,
with that. Like, we're like, "Oh, no, I would never, like, pretend that all of these horrible things my friend is doing, I'm fine with.
right.
Of course not. I wouldn't be friends with them anymore." Okay, so why are you allowing it from somebody who is supposed to be with you, like, every single day for the rest of your life?
Mhm. Yeah. I don't I don't see the point, but I did it.
1,000% yes. Yeah, no, I can't I'm not judging because I done it,
Yeah,
but I just wish that I hadn't sooner.
me too.
On this note of trusting your gut, a bunch of people submitted things like when you know that, like, they like so this one listener wrote in and she said, like, "I tried with a lot of people who weren't the right people. I let people bring me down because I thought that that was something that I needed to do, but then I met my now partner and I quite literally just knew."
Mm.
And I think I love that for her. I think we often think about that in hindsight, though, and I almost think about it in reverse. It's like when you know it's wrong,
Yes, agreed. That.
focus on that.
Correct. 100%. You took the words out of my mouth, because people ask me all the time, like, how did I know? When did I know that it was Jake? And there wasn't a specific moment or a thing that he did where suddenly a light bulb went off in my head and I was like, it's him. He's the one. It was over time, it felt right and it made sense. And those two things continued to climb.
Mm.
But I think the bigger thing is, we've all heard the phrase, like, if they like you, you'll know. If not, you'll be confused. Like, if they like you, you will know.
Yeah.
And if they don't, you will be anxious. You will be justifying their behavior and explaining and over explaining why things are the way they are. And you'll be anxiously waiting for replies and pretending you don't care. And you'll be giving updates to your group chat like it's a case study. But
So true.
that's not mystery, it's misalignment.
Yes. Yeah, because and I I did think I knew with Skyline, but I also thought that several times before
Mhm,
until I didn't.
mhm.
And this felt different. In hindsight, I can see that this felt different. That, like, the
Yeah,
way that I thought I knew with him felt much different and calmer, and, like, this listener said something similar that, like, she said, "I've never felt both this level of calm and safe along with passion and energy."
mhm.
Like, I could have written that sentence about me in Skyline, but, like, I didn't know what that felt like to know that I knew. Does that make sense?
Yes, there's a trend right now of, like, I'm going through my first love right now. I thought I had felt it before, but now with this one, I've never actually been in love until this person.
Right. Yes, I've
And
seen
I
that.
think that is a good way to explain that of like, yes, we've all thought that bad relationships were really good in the past. That's why we were in them. That's why we've gotten our hearts broken. That's why terms like gaslighting have become the biggest thing in the world. Like, because we all thought that we were in good relationships that were not so good. But again, like you said, it's hindsight.
Yeah.
So you can't be like, well, I know because I feel it right now because, yeah, I felt it a million times. I
Yeah.
said, this is the person I'm going to marry a million times after date 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You know who I didn't say that with? Jake, who I did
That's so
marry.
funny.
Yeah,
Because you'd
I learned.
learned that you don't know yet.
Mhm.
But
And
I
you
think
shouldn't
like,
know. You
yeah.
should not know right away.
And so I think it's that one's hard for me. When you know is hard for me because I think it is both true and perhaps not helpful advice.
Yes.
Because it's like, yeah, when you know, you will eventually know that you knew.
Right. Right. But
Which isn't very
here's
helpful.
what I did know early on with Jake was that I felt completely myself. What I did
Yes.
know early on with Jake is that he was communicative and didn't leave me guessing,
Mm.
which took away the opportunity for me to feel anxious. What I did know with Jake was that, on our third date, I had just gotten my first COVID shot and I was so sick.
Oh,
And we had an amazing day. And I learned that on a day where I feel my worst, I could have a really good time with this person
it's
and
amazing.
not worry about how I'm being perceived because I feel bad and not worry about, you know, being in sweatpants instead of like a really cute third date outfit. I
Yeah.
knew that I could just really be myself and be on a bad day with him.
Yeah. I
So those
love
are
that.
things that like when you know those things are happening, you know you're in a better situation. But I said those things before when it was a bad situation. So it's hard. It's so hard. It's
It's
so hard.
really hard. I think for me, that moment of like, oh, this feels different was when it was actually after Skylines and my first date, but then he traveled or he like left for like 5 weeks, maybe. I forget exactly how long now. And I didn't feel confused about where we stood for one
Mhm.
moment
It's
of
huge.
those 5 weeks. For
Yeah,
one moment.
it's huge.
And I also felt really safe to just fucking reach out to him whenever I wanted. Like, I didn't feel like I needed to be like, "Oh, is he like, I didn't feel that way.
Yeah, it's huge. And it feels so good to not feel that way.
It truly does. And like we were saying earlier, there were so many situations, like I'm thinking about the disco ball comes to mind, this guy that I dated in 2022, feels like a million years ago.
It's
He
funny because
also
I remember the name. Like I
yeah,
remember all the
the era, the
Yeah.
disco ball era. He lived in DC when we first met and he was like moving to New York. So we had like a similar sort of long distance time period and he was also traveling for a while and that feeling was I was on very unsteady ground, I felt.
Mhm.
And it would have been ultimately saved me quite a bit of heartache had I been like, this feels bad. I don't want
Yeah.
this bad.
Yeah. I think the advice of, if it were your best friend going through this, what would you tell them? It's really, really good advice, but you have to
Yeah.
be really, really honest. I have a friend who was in this long distance relationship for about like 8 months, and again, it started really great. It felt so different. She thought like finally like all of my pain and suffering has been worth it because it led me to this guy, and it started out really great. And then, she started making excuses for his behavior and for a lot of potentially like I don't like using the term red flag, but I'm going to use it for the 80th time in this episode. But like a lot of big red flags she was justifying. And she's like, I know I'm justifying these red flags, but here are the justifications for them. And it it actually got to a point where she said it herself. She was like, Ilana, you said something to me that I really started thinking about. And because I didn't want to like give her, I didn't want to be coaching her. So I just said
Yeah.
like, hey, if this was me in this situation, what would you say to me?
You were trying to be friend Ilana, not dating coach podcast
Yes.
Ilana.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And a week later she was like, I have not stopped thinking about that. And you're
Mhm.
completely right. And
Mhm.
this isn't okay. And I have let a lot of things slide that don't add up. And I think the more you can think about that, if this were Allie, if this were Alana, if this were my best friend and she were telling me these things, like and that gave her the wake up call that this was not okay.
Yeah.
And she once she realized that, she was also able to realize 100 other things that had gone on in the last few months that weren't okay.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's a great reframe to
Yeah.
think about. The other thing that came up for me of advice that I wish I'd internalized sooner was you mentioned earlier about how like, oh, well, your friends don't know what it's like when it's just the two of us. It's like, well, you guys don't know. I remember focusing so much on what it felt like when I was with someone and not what it felt like when I wasn't with them.
Huge. So important.
Because I don't want to only feel good when we're together, literally
Mhm.
physically, because that probably isn't going to be until we're living together very often. Like percentage wise of my time, I'm probably going to spend more time apart from you than together when we're dating.
Yep.
So why would I want the part time to feel so awful?
It's not worth it.
Mm-mm.
75% of bad time isn't worth the 25% of good time.
No.
And I always try and ask people that, like, what does it feel like in between dates? How do
Yep.
you feel in between dates? Do you know where you stand or are you walking on eggshells?
Hmm.
Because I don't, I've been to like 40 weddings in the last few years. I'd say not a single one of those people were like, yeah, it was really touch and go there in the beginning. I really had no idea if this was going to pan out or not. And I was so anxious waiting for them to text me back. Not one of those people would say that
Yeah.
because it was easy and it was communicative from the start.
Yeah. I think what's hard is that I do know people that are dating and happy now that don't necessarily have the same communication style.
Mhm.
And sometimes I think it can be hard to figure out which one it is. Like,
Yeah.
is it just that we're missing each other because, like, I like to talk on the phone and he likes to text? Or is it because he is a bad communicator and he's confusing and he's making me feel unsure?
Right. And I think the best way to figure that out from the get go is to talk about it
Yeah, say
on
something.
early dates. Bring it up. Like, "Oh, by the way, like, I'm a really big texter. Like, let me know if that's, like, not your cup of tea,
Yeah.
because if I don't hear from you, I'm gonna assume you're not interested."
Yeah, it'd be like, "Hey, I've noticed that, like,
Yeah.
you're, like, a little quiet on text, like, I'm a big texter, like, what do you whatever," and
Yeah.
you can but I think that easy vibe that you mentioned, that conversation will be easy
Mhm.
if that's the vibe that you're gonna have. Like, maybe it's not that you
Yeah.
don't have to work through things, it's that working through things is
Doesn't feel
simpler.
like work. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. You can ask for what you need and express those needs without everything blowing up or without being so nervous to say that simple thing
Mm.
that is completely valid and
Yeah.
normal. But some people make you feel like it's not at all.
Yes. Yeah. So the next big category of things from listeners are more so like mindset shifts. One of the biggest themes that I got in submissions that I also had struggles with is focusing on potential over reality.
Yep.
And it kind of goes back to what you were saying about justifying the reasons why things are happening. It's like, oh, no, 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 but he's just going through XYZ thing right now. And once that's done, everything's going to be great. But you're
Yeah.
ignoring what's happening now.
You cannot marry potential.
No.
You don't marry potential, you marry patterns.
Mhm.
And if these are things that are happening for a long time or happening many times, partnership is built on repeated behavior. Again,
Yes.
it's the 75% of the bad cannot make up for 25% of the good or the greatness that you see in them. It
Yeah.
doesn't.
I have a question for you about that secret relationship you were in. Was there like a circumstance about it where like there was hope of like light at the end of the tunnel of it no longer being secret? At least in your
No, it
head?
was a ticking time bomb.
Mm.
It was completely a ticking time bomb. We worked together.
Ah,
He was in a band, I was the manager of the band, and he wanted it to be a secret from the other guy in the band because he thought the other guy in the band wouldn't be okay with it. So,
got it. So it was like an indefinite secret,
it was an
essentially.
indefinite secret, and because of the fact that it was a secret, I was, like, sleeping at his place, like, 6 nights a week. I pretty much assumed, like, it was just us,
Yeah,
and then I started to, like, there'd be a long hair on his pillowcase, and I'm like, "Is that my hair? Or not? It's a little lighter than my hair.
Oh,
I don't know,
no.
that might be someone else's hair." And then, there'd be times where I wouldn't hear from him for a few hours, and it'd be, like, a Thursday night, and I'm like, "Is he with someone else?" And then this was the time where you could see who people were following on Instagram, and I'd be like, "Who are these girls?" And he'd be like, "What, am I not allowed to have friends that you don't know?" And I'm like, "Oh, you're right. I'm being, like, crazy. Okay." But lo and behold, when all was said and done, turns out he was hooking up with other people the entire time,
Ugh,
because, to his other friend, we were not dating.
right.
And that was part of the defense from the other friend who thought I was lying about everything. It was
Oh,
like, "Well,
no.
he couldn't have been with you. Like, he's been with all these other girls for the last, like, 8 months. What do you mean?" I'm like, "Oh,
Oh.
okay."
So, yeah, it turns out you don't know your friends so well, bud.
Yeah. So, I thought it could be something so great if I just convinced him to not have it be a secret anymore.
Mm,
But
mhm,
eventually it was gonna go to shit. There was no
right.
way for this to be sustainable. But so many times I saw, how good me and someone else could be together, or like once they get out of this bad job, or once this thing happens, then everything will fall into place. But that's not reality.
Yeah. I mean, to throw another nickname out from that era, the rower, I think about that situation with this topic
Mhm.
because it was a situation where he was post-engagement breaking up, not ready for a relationship. Reed didn't wanna be in a relationship with me,
Mhm.
and I gave it more time than I probably should have.
Yep. As we
Ultimately
do.
did cut it off, and I, like, ultimately did take my own advice, but, like, later than I should have for sure.
Yeah.
And I would have saved myself. I mean, it was only, like, a couple of months in the grand scheme of things, but I would have saved myself, probably
Well,
a month or so.
also, yes, but then extra time later to heal from it,
So true.
and that matters. And also, even if something is short-lived, I mean, I feel like there are so often, like, situationships end up hurting more than actual, like, 2-year-long relationships because you're mourning the potential future that you thought you had and that you were
Yep,
building up in your head. So, I don't think, time isn't a measure of pain, um,
so
at
true.
least in my experience and from what I've seen.
Yeah. I I thought a lot about right person, wrong time in that time period, which I do not believe in, generally speaking, but I, like even though I knew that that wasn't a thing, I still thought about it in my
Yeah.
own situation because I would think, "God, if I could only have met him a year from now,
Mhm.
would this have been different?" Probably not.
Yeah.
Probably not.
But it's nice to think about.
Was it? Was it nice to think about or did it haunt me?
Yeah, 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 yeah. Yeah. And it's either way, it's not reality.
Right.
It's not reality. You
Yeah.
cannot date someone for who you hope they'll become or who you hope the two of you could be together if X thing happens, when Y thing changes. You want to be supporting someone who's actively growing
Yeah.
and who's actively supporting you back,
Yes.
not who maybe can support you back once they figure their own stuff out.
Yeah. And that potential though feels so tempting.
Mhm.
Because a lot of times I think you'll see it in bursts. Like you'll see flashes of what you could be. And then you're like, "Oh, but we're not though.
Mhm.
We're not."
But what if I can fix them? What if our paths were meant to cross because they need me? They need me to fix them, and I can help unpack
Of
their
course.
trauma, and
That's
at
definitely your job, by the
the
way, for
more
sure.
patient I am, the more they'll see my worth, and, if I could love them enough, they'll meet me there eventually. Your job is not to
Uh-uh.
fix anyone. That's not your
No.
job. You don't get paid for that.
Literally no. No unpaid internships around here.
No. No.
Because especially because that will then lead you to feel like you have failed. Like if you've put it on yourself that like you're the one that is going to coach this person out of whatever they're in your mind, and then that doesn't happen, now it's on you in
Yeah,
your
if
head.
only I could have done more of this, or if only I was
Right.
less that and more that, then you're just gonna keep blaming yourself.
Mhm.
But this was never you never got hired to do this.
Yeah. You were doing a job no one hired you to do and then got fired from that job that you were
Right.
never
That's not
had.
going on your resume.
No. It's such a good metaphor. Um, are there any big ones for you that we haven't mentioned?
Yeah, this one, it's not necessarily like generic advice that everyone hears, but this was something that my roommate and one of my lifelong best friends would always say to me because she was my roommate. She was seeing all of it. I couldn't
Yep.
hide anything from her. And she famously would say to me, "Ilana, don't be desperate."
Mm,
And I hated this at the time because I didn't feel like I was desperate again. It's like I felt like, I'm the person that this person needs, and I want to make this work, and I'm gonna do all the work even while they can't. And it was always, "Alana, don't be desperate." But what I was doing, I didn't see it as desperate. But in reality, I was forcing timelines.
mm,
I was clinging on to things that were lukewarm and trying to make it, as big and bright and shiny as it could be. I was over investing on day one.
mhm.
I was accepting crumbs because the idea of starting over felt terrifying and exhausting. And the biggest thing that I was doing that I now realize is what she meant by don't be desperate. I was treating every almost relationship, every situationship, every first date like it was my last shot.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't let go.
Scarcity mindset. I'll get you.
Yeah. Yeah. So it wasn't that I needed to care less or be less desperate. Like it was that
Yeah.
I needed to trust that I wasn't on a timer. I needed to trust that this wasn't the last 20, 30 something year old on earth that could potentially be the right fit for me. I needed to trust that there would be other people, other trains would come. And I really kept repeating this pattern of trying to make every glimpse of possibility work. And over and over, she was like, "Lana, you're being desperate. Don't be desperate." And I'm like, "I'm not literally begging," but I was. I
But
was.
effectively,
Yeah, and she could see it and I couldn't.
I think that's a good reframe of what we mean by desperate too, because I think that a lot of people that I've heard throw out that term if you double text someone or if you like reach out to them first or if you ask someone on a date.
Yeah.
No, to me, that's not desperation. Like if you're coming from a place of confidence and you're just not worried about what that other person is going to think. But when you're accepting what you don't actually want and like over functioning because the other person is not,
Yeah.
that's then when I think you're in that territory
Exactly.
where I've definitely been also.
We've all been desperate. Even
You
if we're
have.
not sitting there saying like, please, please, please pick me, stay with me, pick me, choose me, love me. Like there are other ways that you're showing it.
Yeah.
And she saw my early stages with Jake and
Mm.
she knew. She was like, yeah, this is going to stick because
This is
I
different.
wasn't doing any of these things. I was just letting things unfold naturally.
Yeah. And like trusting that if this is the right situation, that
It will
like,
be the right situation.
yeah, my mom likes to say, if it's right, there's nothing you can do wrong. And if it's wrong, there's nothing you can do right.
Love.
Which she's told me that since I was a small child as it relates to like a lot of things about life. And
Love
that
that,
is a
Mama
piece of advice.
Jackson.
That's a piece of advice that I wish I had internalized sooner
Yeah,
in my love life, especially.
totally.
But she told me that in like things like my career too, like jobs that I interviewed for that I really wanted and didn't get.
Yeah,
And I was like spinning about, what could I have done differently and how could I have prepared differently? And she had seen me prepare for these things and she was like, literally nothing.
nothing.
It wasn't meant for you.
Yep. And
It's
it
not like
led
you
you to
showed up
the
unprepared.
no. And maybe had you gotten those jobs, you wouldn't be doing this.
Probably not.
Yeah, I think about that too. And it's
One
funny,
thing leads to another.
the advice that I like that has really shaped my life is also from my mom, and it's if you don't ask, you don't get. And it applies to career, relationships, friendship, literally everything. Everything.
Literally everything.
And it's great advice.
It is really good advice.
And I take it. And I
Yeah.
do ask. And I do get. And it's awesome.
It's
I
so
love
great.
when things happen that way. I don't get everything that I ask for every time, but I'd say the best opportunities and things that have happened in my life have happened because I asked for them in one way or another.
Yeah. I mean, maybe you're not going to get everything you asked for. You probably aren't, but you're certainly going to
No.
get more than if you didn't.
Totally. Exactly.
And more stuff that you want.
Mm-hmm.
And that's aligned with you.
Yep.
I love it. Well, Ilana, as always, thank you for being here. I could talk to you all day. I'm excited to be on Seeing Other People again soon.
Cannot wait. Cannot wait.
Speaking of, the listeners know where to find you, but where can the listeners find you?
I am so easy to be found. If you want to find me, please find me. I love being followed and found. At Ilana Dunn on Instagram and TikTok and Seeing Other People wherever you get your podcasts. And Allie, this has been so much fun. Thank you so much for having me.
So fun. Talk to you soon.
Yay.